Hey, this is Zero at ReviewZoneHD, continuing Race Week with the PlayStation 3 review of Blur, an arcade racer that released in May of 2010, which more closely resembles a kart-style game than your standard typical racer. It can be enjoyed with up to 3 friends in 4-player local co-op or an eye-popping 20-player online match. Upon the game's release, it received pretty good reviews, and according to its wiki, holds a Metacritic score of 83 out of 100, placing it 4 points behind both Wipeout HD and Burnout Paradise City. I had no problems getting into an online match this week with multiple choices of rooms to play in, so the community for this game is still holding pretty strong even a couple years later. With that said, let's go ahead and get into the review. While the actual environments and racing graphics are somewhat muddy and subpar, the presentation, lighting, special effects, neon menus, and cars were all so well done any gripe with the graphics can be overlooked. The game uses licensed cars and there's plenty to choose from, however you cannot customize them other than just picking a new favorite coat of paint, which is a little bit disappointing. While I didn't notice any frame rate or graphical issues playing in the single player modes, I did notice a little bit of lag and skipping while playing online, especially at the beginning of the races when all the cars are just littered everywhere around you. But overall, I'd say it's pretty impressive this game runs as well as it does with the amount of weapons and explosions and cars and particle effects that would chug up even some of the better games out there. This is the one comment that I've gotten the most on these videos, and also is one of Blur's very few downsides. The single player difficulty may be a little bit too much for some. Repeating the same race can be standard fare once you actually pass the halfway mark of its single player campaign, and I can't tell you how many races I was in first place through the first 90% of the race, only to lose it at the very end by a barrage of missiles and lightning attacks that would give even the best drivers out there a tough time dodging. You also have to sacrifice car health and sometimes even traction to select and race as one of the faster cars, which can lead to some frustrating defeats as your car explodes on the final lap and you watch half the pack go zipping past you. That's not to say the game can't be beaten. It's not so challenging that it should cause a controller fling through the TV, but it's still worth mentioning. There are also some random requirements for unlocking the final challenge in each event, and these requirements can be a bit tough to meet as well. The other downside to this game is the handling of over half the cars. The controls are crisp and responsive, but a good majority of the cars are extremely hard to take through a sharp corner without completely riding the wall through the turn, which is actually what most players do even online. I remember watching videos for this game when it first released, wondering why all the people playing couldn't get the car through a turn without smacking it into a wall, and now I know why. It's actually better to just slam it into the wall opposed to trying to ride the brakes so hard that you lose all your speed, or trying to hold the drift button, which in my experience resulted in more spinouts than a quick snap through a turn. Now some cars are the exception. There are a few in here that can actually turn without too much of a problem, especially the cars that have a lot of grip, and it also depends on the track as well, as some tracks are easier to corner on than others. It took a little bit of getting used to, but it starts to be a little enjoyable just pinballing your way through the tracks after you spend some time with the game. The single player campaign is decent enough to keep you occupied for a short time as you play through it, but the online multiplayer is enough fun that I'll go as far as to say it will compete with even the more recent release of another great racing brawler in Twisted Metal. It doesn't have the same clan support or options, but the core gameplay experience of battling it out with up to 19 other players as the power-ups fly back and forth is enjoyable enough to have kept people playing this long, as there were multiple max level players in each room that I was in. You really have to enjoy a game to continue playing after you've pretty much seen and done everything on it, and that's what this game's online mode has to offer, an experience that can't be found anywhere else and rewarding enough to keep you coming back. While I haven't even began to try to determine what order these 19 or so racing games that I'm covering this week will be in for the final race week countdown video, I will say I'm pretty confident Blur is going to at least make the top 7 solely because of what it offers in its online play. It's a game that I would highly recommend if you want an online arcade racer. Anyways, this is Zero at ReviewZoneHD, and thanks for stopping by.